Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get started here. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. Today we'll be diving into how Strategies Group partner Velixo magnifies the power of Acumatica Construction Edition. Today we're joined by Acumatica and Velixo user Midstates company. Andrew is representing them today, and we also have Duffy from the Velixo team joining us. And together they will show the power of Velixo and how it can take your Acumatica Construction Edition program to the next level. And I just wanted to go through over a few housekeeping things before I pass it over to Andrew. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. I know we've done enough webinars at this point that you guys are very familiar with that. Additionally, this webinar will be recorded, and I'll be providing a recording of the webinar to all of you all tomorrow to share with your teams or to rewatch if you had any questions. And in order to not delay us any further, I'll pass it over to Andrew for the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Selena. As Selena said, my name is Andrew Pistorius. I'm the CFO for Midstates companies in the middle of Iowa. And so we launched on Acumatica April of 2022 and went through a transition from our initial implementation team that got sold to Strategies Group, and have been working with Strategies Group since last fall. As we kind of got everything stood up and somewhat stable, I had looked at Velixo and talked to the guys at Summit. And so I think I asked Duffy for a demo for like a month because I just never had time to get into it. And then the more I got into it, the more I thought, hey, this is a really useful tool. And so what I'm going to show you today is, I'll probably just kind of jump right in, is how we've a couple of ways that we've used Velixo as a solution for estimating, and then what we call resource scheduling. So, estimating for most construction companies is, it's kind of like one of the major legs on which a construction company stands. And, I've used big enterprise estimating systems, and when we implemented Acumatica, I looked at something that would have integrated with Acumatica, but the challenge I had is we were a company that was going from QuickBooks to Acumatica. And so QuickBooks was the most sophisticated piece of software that we used. And so because of that, my guys were not equipped, our project managers, to go and start estimating in something like ProEst or something really, really complicated. And so, as most companies would, we just turned to Excel, which is where our previous estimating sheets were in. But obviously, as you probably all know, they get abused and broken, and people not following good Excel fundamentals, and then all of a sudden you have estimate busts. And so what I've tried to do is build something here that people can actually estimate in a repeatable manner. And then we've used kind of the integration between Velixo and Acumatica to help us generate proposals that look really good, and to provide the level of detail that our customers want, and then also that allow our estimates and our proposals to be tied directly. So what used to happen is our guys would go fill out their estimating spreadsheet, and that might take a couple days. And then once they reviewed the pricing with everyone, then they would have to sit down and type a proposal. And so now instead they just estimate the job, and then when they're done, they click a button. And so that's kind of what I'm going to show you. So this is, we call it our project estimator, and we've gone through a number of kind of iterations of it already. I started a new job for this demo because I want to show you guys kind of how it works. So there is a fair amount of Visual Basic macros that I used in here. I'm not a programmer. I'm just a numbers guy that's been nerdy enough to steal code off the internet to be able to program some of this stuff. So I have a bunch of extra tabs exposed, but this is sorry, let me go back there. This is kind of our base instruction sheet. Hang on. That lets us set up our margin, our taxes, and our cost rate, and all this other sort of stuff. And then part of this is just trying to simplify it for the guys where they can just click a button. And so Some of the stuff that maybe isn't as related to Velixo, but I want to walk through it because there's a lot of validation that we do in here. Is we have something that we call the librarian, which is basically somewhat where we can store templated estimate items. And so in this case, we call it our general requirements, or sometimes we call it general conditions. And so the idea is that they can go click and just add that to their estimate. And now we have all those overhead items in there, and many of them are auto calculated. But one of the things I'll point out is, like, as you try to put budget into your job in Acumatica, there's, you have to be sure to follow, units of measure and all those sorts of things. So what we have in the background is a bunch of queries that are directly linked to Velixo. So like right here, this is a sheet that we have. And this is, if you look up at the language here, it's a generic inquiry from our Acumatica instance that's pulling in all of the units of measure so that we can validate them, so that way when we go to upload all this information, it can just go in. And so anyway, so what I want to do here is I want to show you guys just a couple. So if I go here and I'm going to add a leg tower, which for us is, we do grain handling construction mostly. And so, this is, again, this part here doesn't have anything to do with Velixo, but I want part of this is I wanted to show you guys exactly like how quickly we can actually estimate this stuff. So, so we would have some over excavation, some foundation, and then if we had a 150-foot tower, and you can see we have some stuff pre-programmed in here, and a tower costs $1,000 a foot. And so now you can see that the stuff up above, it's all starting to kind of fill out because it calculates on itself. So let's just say, hypothetically, that was the entire job. So what they can do now is go back to the instruction sheet, and just fair warning, I'm doing this all completely live, so hopefully it doesn't explode because it is Excel and sometimes that happens. Oops. But so what ends up happening then is I have this button that's called generate proposal, and what it does is it goes through a series of Velixo generic write-back. So Velixo itself in its base form, the way we used it initially was just to pull data into Excel from Acumatica. And then as I learned more about what the write-back features did, there's something called generic write-back that you pay, I think you pay an extra $1,000 or something for it per year. But it literally allows you to basically put data into anywhere in the system that you can do an import scenario. And so for example, what we're going to do is we're going to click this generate proposal button. And what the spreadsheet's going to do is it's going to go look in that construction job, and it's going to see, okay, what tasks are already in there because I need to delete them. So this first generic write-back, that's what it does. It's going to delete all those tasks. Then it's going to go through and it's going to upload all of our revenue tasks. And then it's going to upload all of our cost tasks. And then it's going to upload all of our revenue budget. And then it's going to upload all of our cost budget. And then it's going to make a tie between our revenue budget and our cost budget. And by in doing that, we build the hierarchy for our proposal. And if you ask how, like one of the questions I often get is like, well, how did you figure all this out? And it was just literally just one step at a time. So, but the benefit of this for me now is my project managers can go through and estimate, they can do all this estimating, and they can be in there tweaking numbers and getting quotes and all those sorts of things. And then when they're done, like I said, they don't have to worry about typing a proposal. And the other thing about it is when a customer says, hey, I actually want to increase the capacity of that bucket elevator from 15,000 bushel per hour to 20,000 bushel per hour. Well, now they don't have to remember to go back to the estimate, update it, get a new price, and then go back to the proposal and update it as well. They can literally just go back, go solely to the estimate itself, make the change, and then re-upload everything. And let's see if this is actually going to show us what it should be doing. I will say one thing about Velixo is that because it's able to query from Acumatica, it can use a lot of processing power, and there's some ways to mitigate that, like turning off automatic calculations and things like that. But so what I did here is we just have a screen built in that will kind of help my PMs understand what we're doing. So the first thing we do is we clear out those existing project tasks, because we don't want them to show up in the estimate. And then we're going to go upload the 2 revenue tasks. And so all this is, right, it's just a series of spreadsheets, but one of the beauties of Velixo is you can use Velixo as an object in Visual Basic to automate some of this stuff, because the generic write-back feature, if you're a power user, is really, really great, right? Because you'll understand how to, I just need to go to Velixo and perform a generic write-back on this little thing. But when you have, when I have 5 to 7 people that are estimating jobs at any given time, and so to teach all of them how to properly use Velixo is much more difficult than to just say, go click that button. And like I said, it is Excel, and there's lots of stuff that they can do to screw it up. But I would rather have to troubleshoot an Excel issue than have to get them than to have to train and retrain people to do something that's honestly pretty obscure. So anyway, so you can see it just jumped through all those things. This is a relatively small estimate, so fortunately it goes quickly. And then what it does is I worked with strategies group. And so it goes in automatically to build this hierarchy. So now I've got my project here, and it's using all of the data from this project, B16209, and it's using all of the details that we put into Excel under so like if we go back to the estimator, you can see in here we have these notes. And so all of these notes pull in as our hierarchical notes that are associated with our pay items. And so now we've got a nice clean proposal that we can send to the customer. It has a signature on it. It has all of our terms and conditions. And the other thing that's great about this is, when people are typing proposals in a Word document, they have way more control than they should. And so they can make spacing look really bad. They can change the size of the font. They can change the margins. They can do any number of things that would present an inconsistent product from either one customer to the next, or even one employee at the same customer to the next. And so this allows us to make it clean and solid and consistent, and something that our marketing team likes all the time. So that's our estimating tool. Obviously it is very, very complicated. But the thing I always tell my team my team on our finance and administration side is, like, if we can take on complexity to create simplicity for everyone else, then I'll do that all the time, because I'm okay with dealing with the complexity if I can create simplicity elsewhere. So that is the estimator. And then the other thing I want to show just briefly, and then I'm not going to show the upload of this because this is actually like a really live document, but this is our resource schedule. And so one of the challenges that we have is scheduling. And I think I would guess that most companies have that, especially when you talk about scheduling resources. So what we do is we use this as a way to schedule our staff and our cranes. And what we're not trying to do with this yet is do like a full-on, Primavera or Microsoft project sort of like schedule with predecessors and successors and things like that. I do think it's possible, but we just have to get there. Right now, what we're trying to do is simply block out, who is going to be where and when, from kind of our design and leads. And so what we've done is we just have, this is a relatively simple view of our job, and anything in red, these are all lookups. So like, oops, that jumps to it. So this is pulling in our different jobs, and then we're able to assign, whether it's a design line, a superintendent, a crew lead, a crane and operator, whatever it is, and then assign a person to it, and have start date and end dates. And then you'll see here we have this published Acumatica job, and so, or button. And so one of the things that I've been that I want to do more as much as possible is I want to push data into Acumatica, where Acumatica can be the repository for it, because Excel sheets get wonky and they get corrupt, and someone does something dumb to them. And so if we can constantly push our data into Acumatica, what it allows us to do is, if everything explodes in Excel, we still have all the data, right? And so and then it goes back to some of the reporting stuff. So we have this published Acumatica, and what happens is we've just come up with a new type of task. So if we go into a one of our projects, B16089, I think this has got some in it. all we did is we just created a task that starts with the word schedule. And so what happens is when you click this published Acumatica button, it goes in and it creates, it'll go in and every single time it deletes every task throughout the entire system in active jobs that starts with the word schedule. And then it goes back and it will write back all of the tasks that we have in here. And then what we started to do is, rather than trying to get into all these really obscure places in the system, and get, employees pulled and things like that, we just added some attributes inside of each one of these tasks. And the beauty of Velixo is, like, we can upload to those attributes from Velixo. And so here we've got what task is, what type is the task, who's it assigned to, and then the task in and of itself has start date and end dates, if we have put them in there. In that case, we hadn't. So the advantage of this now is it goes back to reporting and consistency. And so if you look at this, what we're able to do is create a this will take a second to run, but we're able to create a good, clean, consistent, basically Gantt chart by person to show what are they working on. So the best ones to look at are some of our, like, superintendents. So this guy Chris, so he's going to be in he's in Bliss, Idaho, or he just finished in Idaho. He's off for a couple weeks, then he's going to Guernsey, and then to Garden City, and then back to Guernsey, and then to Friona. And so you're able to see that flow using getting a good Gantt chart. Now, if you really want to know, yeah.
I think we're seeing.
Oh no, you see Excel?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I must have said only share the window, not the screen. There we go. Sorry about that. Thank you. So this is so here's the Gantt chart.
Okay,
Can you guys
perfect.
see that? Great. Sorry. So anyway, so you're able to see kind of just these bands, and so again, all I did to run that is I literally just went and clicked the resource schedule report and ran it. And so, what we've done is the one of the challenges with Acumatica itself is, like, to get really complicated calculations to happen inside of Acumatica can be kind of difficult, right? You likely end up having to do import scenarios tied to generic inquiries, which have custom formulas in them, and so one of the benefits of using Velixo like this is you're able to do a lot of those complicated formulas in Excel, where if you're the power user, you're probably pretty good at it. And then you can use this upload, kind of this conduit to Acumatica, to get the data that's the result of those calculations into the right spots. And then you can use the reporting platform of Acumatica, which, if you've used the report designer, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but the result can be really great. And so, then this is what our schedule ends up looking like. Similarly, we have a schedule for our cranes that is basically the same thing, but our cranes are run in a separate company, so we have it separate. And then this shows us, where do we have all of our cranes scheduled to be and when. So we felt like so that's kind of the quick rundown over my demo. I'd be happy to go through anything else in more detail, but just on a summary level, like the big win for me with Velixo is that it's you can use import scenarios in Acumatica, and they're relatively easy to use, but they're not intuitive. And with Excel, you're able to do more stuff, like, if you can do a little bit of VBA, you're able to do more stuff that it's like, oh, there's a button there that says push it to Acumatica, as opposed to, like, teaching every user to say, oh, you go to import scenario, you go find this import scenario, and then you drag it into Excel file, and then you click prepare and import, and then you go look at all the errors. And so Velixo really simplifies that by not just by being able to exist in Excel, but then also being able to be run through VBA in Excel. So that is everything I've got.
Okay, awesome. Then we can pass it over to Duffy. Then thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. That was fantastic. It's great to see the power, and I really feel like you put Velixo to an extent on steroids, which was great to see. So I just wanted to say hello to everyone here today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and talk a little bit more about Velixo and the capabilities that everyone here would obtain from using Velixo from a reporting standpoint. So just give me one moment. Let's go ahead and share my screen and we'll be able to get started. All right. Now I'm going to start off, probably for about 3 minutes at the most, just talking about really what Velixo is at the core. But really for the major chunk of the remaining time today, I'm going to show you our solution and some of the core functionalities that all of you would have access to. But from the main onset, what Velixo is we extract all the data that you would have in Acumatica, and we bring that to life within Excel. And in the same vein, as Andrew had mentioned, you have that ability to push your data back from Excel directly into Acumatica. So you can, anything that you can think of from a financial standpoint, project standpoint, generic inquiry standpoint, so it's really the import scenario environment, you'll be able to push back into Acumatica. So to get started, I always like to talk about our founder, Gabriel Michaud. Extensive experience in the ERP space, 20 plus years. And prior to working for Acumatica, he actually worked at the organization, leading the product development team with the previous CEO, John Roskell, where they were going and they would meet with prospective customers, partners, and he got a good feel for what there was a need for from a reporting standpoint, and he went off on his own and built Velixo. And in a very short period of time, we've grown to thousands of customers in various countries, as you'll see from the map below. But the whole idea how Velixo really came to be was, just give me 1 second. Let's click on the next slide. There we go. The whole reason how Velixo came to be was fairly straightforward. Gabriel said, let's not have customers have that inability to manipulate those reports the way they see fit. Many customers are dealing with the issues of extracting their reports by clicking on the export to Excel. But by the time they're done exporting that information to Excel, they manipulate those reports. It's no longer live, and those reports are essentially no longer useful. So he said, let's use the most popular add-on in the entire world, Excel having over 1 billion users, and just create that functionality and capability to allow customers to utilize what they already know and learned and utilized for the last 20 years, and just create some additional functionalities to create that communication between multiple ecosystems. So the first thing you all will see, and I know Andrew did a fantastic job. Once we download Velixo, I'm going to show you some sample pack reports. I'll show you some of the core functionalities we've added on. But I do want to emphasize that we've created over 80 functions specifically for the financial side, project module, and generic inquiries within Acumatica. I believe over 55 of the 80 functions that we host are specifically and uniquely designed for the project module, but we do service, financials and GIs. GIs exposes you to everything outside of projects and financials. So it can be inventory, it can be sales, commission reports, stock items, non-stock items, really anything that you think of, you'll be able to bring to life within Excel, and you can filter through, create those reports, have multiple functions within one spreadsheet to look and feel like you're getting the report that you're looking for. 2 items I do want to mention here is that all the data that we will be showing today is live and all refreshable as a click of a button. You saw when Andrew clicked on the export or the write back functionality, it pushed the data right away into Acumatica. And that is the idea behind Velixo. We want it to be a seamless approach. We can skip on this slide. We'll go 2 slides before we'll touch on the solution itself. From my perspective, this is the most important slide. 2 items here to mention is that we want every single customer to be able to utilize Velixo without restrictions. So we have an unlimited user model. So if you're 1, 5, 100 employees at your organization, we don't charge additional fees for that. Like I mentioned, it's really about making sure that everyone who needs access has access. Lastly, and most importantly, is that we mirror the exact same permission rights that each individual has in Acumatica when they're trying to use Velixo. So if someone on your team, let's say, doesn't have access to given screens or given functions or given items within your ecosystem in Acumatica, they still wouldn't have that accessibility when they're utilizing Velixo. We use those permission rights to ensure that, it really is locked down. And more importantly, we do not store any data within Velixo. And then just a sample of some of the organizations that we're working with right now. I always like to touch on or hone in on Acumatica, as they themselves have seen the value in our solution. They've actually purchased Velixo for their own reporting needs. With that being said, I do want to touch on Velixo and show you a little bit of the power of some of the accessibilities and functionalities you'll have access to. So I'm going to dive into a couple of sample pack reports, and I do want to mention these reports that I'm highlighting right now. All of this is available on our website. It's free of charge. You can utilize this. We want our customers, to benefit from these reports themselves. So if we take a look at our first sample pack report that you'll see, you'll see a P&L, you'll see trailing P&L, income consolidated report, cash flow statement. But within this report itself, you'll see there are multiple branches. So let's say we want to switch over to a different branch in this instance. You'll see a new report populate within that given branch instantaneously. You could also include unposted transactions. I know that's a limitation in Acumatica's our report writer. But let's dive in right away into one of the most highly utilized functions that you'll see, and it's called drill down, that you see right up top. Put simply, it allows you to click on any cell within any single one of your transactions and go to the source transaction directly within Acumatica. So let's take a look at our total operating expenses, and let's just assume we want to click on drill down. Momentarily, you will see a new sheet that opens up. It's going to highlight all those transactions, know where they're coming from, financial period, associated branches, description, and balances. But I do want to highlight how we are connected into the Acumatica ecosystem. So let's take this example right here. And I am simply going to click on View Transaction. At that point, you will see that there will be a hyperlink that pushes you directly into Acumatica. If you're logged in, you'll go directly to the account detail section. Well, because we're on the financial side, you'll go to the account detail section, where in this instance, we'll see it's one at the Hilton. We'll see 201.73, and you can simply click on the reference number. And at that point, you'll see that original invoice populate. So only a matter of clicks, and you're all the way from your source cell in Excel directly to the original transaction within Acumatica. And as I scroll back, you'll see you do have that flexibility to drill back. So you're going to see, where is this cell coming from? You'll see this came from the travel category. I highlighted one example. This example was total operating expenses. If you wanted to see an example with just one line item, let's take this example, for instance. We'll click on drill down, and then the same idea, you'll see that populate in real time. So that being said, that was the first functionality. It's drill down. And like I mentioned one last time, you can click on any cell within any one of your spreadsheets and go to the source transaction directly within Acumatica. The next functionality I'll touch on is the report distribution. And this is a very powerful tool for those of you who send out reports in a regular cadence. And what it allows you to do is send out reports. I'm not going to say at the click of a button, but I'm going to assume a lot quicker than how you might be sending out reports now if you're using more of a manual approach. First thing to notice in the ribbon bar up top is that new list. When you click on this list, you will see a template that will populate. This will be the template, and you'll see in our instance, I've predefined exactly what we want to send out. And let's go through these one by one. If we take a look firstly at the columns, you'll see we can choose the format. So you can send these reports out in Excel, PDF. These reports can be static or dynamic. So let's say you want to send out a report to someone else on your team who has full accessibility rights, such as yourself. Once they receive those reports, they themselves would even be able to drill down on those specific functions because the report is essentially live. Following that, you'll see choosing the file name, self-explanatory, tabs, just based on the below sheet that you see here. Folder path. So let's say we wanted to send our reports to OneDrive, SharePoint, or another online medium. you can do that. Intended recipients, subject line, and then my two favorite are G and J. So if you want to send out a report in the body of an email, you can easily do that, but you have that flexibility to slice and dice your reports even further. So you can send out, let's say just the cogs to a given CIO on your team, if that's all that they're looking for. But to make matters even better, you can make that filter a little bit more concise. So you can send out consolidated, Service West, you can filter by branch, by company, by sales rep, you can even create your own customized filter. So if you have a given project manager, for instance, who you only want them to see one given report, you can choose and you can pick and choose what they will receive. Once we're at the point where we are ready to distribute these reports out, you'll see here it says save to drafts. You can send immediately or open drafts. You have that flexibility in choosing how you want to distribute, but all you'll do is click on distribute all, and then the reports will be sent out in real time. While the reports are being sent out, a question that's asked quite frequently is, can we automate our report sends? Simple answer is yes. Complex answer, even though it's not too complex, is that all you have to do is set this up in your Windows Task Manager, and those steps are already available on our website. So we're just sending 7 reports right now. Should take about 30 seconds to 45 seconds. And once it's done sending, we'll take a look at these samples. There we go. Looks like we are almost done. Perfect. So let's go back into our drafts. And I'm going to highlight some of these reports that we built out. So if you take a look at the first one, you'll see this is going to a CFO and they only want to see the net sales as a line item. We can easily do that. Second example here is, just an income consolidated report, again, in the body of an email. Now let's take 2 different samples. So let's open up the first one. In this report here, you'll see this is being sent to Service West in this scenario. We are removing budget. And then lastly, you'll see a full consolidated report populate. So here you'll see a consolidated report, and I am going to scroll to the second page just so you can see we're extracting anything that is on that spreadsheet. So you don't even have to have any Velixo formulas here. Pie charts, these tables, this is all being created by standard Excel functionalities. And I couldn't stress enough, with Velixo, we're just utilizing and piggybacking on some of Excel's core innate functionalities. So you can use a hybrid of Excel functions in addition to Velixo associated functions. And you'll see here we're using the Acumatica logo. You can change this to your organization's logo. With that being said, I will transition into the next functionality, which really opens up the door for you to to have more of an operational reporting if that's something that you're looking for. So being able to report on generic inquiries has opened up the door for a lot of the customers we've worked with. We originally started just offering financials, and we slowly evolved in adding a project module and then generic inquiries. With Acumatica, your team does receive over 400 pre-built generic inquiries. And with Velixo, you have that ability to extract any single one of these inquiries. So let's take a look at the first example here. I'm going to take bills and adjustments. We're not going to touch anything on the screen here. I just want to highlight how we are able to extract a specific GI from Acumatica. So we'll click on Edit GI, and we're simply going to click on Edit GI. Once we copy that inquiry title, we'll bring that into Excel. Equals GI. So that's one of the new functions we've created. We'll put our connection name in, a demo connection, and AP bills and adjustments. And you'll see just like that, this entire inquiry has loaded from Acumatica in real time. At this point, you have that flexibility to filter even further. So let's say we're looking for vendor, status, and then currency. You have that flexibility now to create a filter, put that into your inquiry. And so the next time that you go back in, you'll have exactly what you're looking for. So for vendor, let's say we want transit. And then for currency, let's actually look for status. We want open. All we'll do at this point is type equals GI filter. And then just like before, we'll put our connection in, put our inquiry title. And then we'll take the above variables that you see. So we created a filter. We copy this. And we simply put this into our original inquiry. And then you're going to have any vendor that's transit with the status open and the currency USD. You can toggle between these. You'll see it update in real time. So this is a very powerful functionality, allows you to really report on anything outside of financials and project related functionalities. The next tool is one of my favorites. You'll see here, it's the write back functionality. And this allows you to push your data back from Excel directly into Acumatica. You'll see a few different options right here: journal transactions, budgets, project forecast, and generic write back. So in our scenario here, we click on journal transaction for an example. You'll see the template that populates. You'll be able to push this back. We have an example I always like to highlight. So you'll see here the budget write back scenario. Here, very similar to the budget screen that you would see within Acumatica, where you can update your budget. You can create comments for other individuals on your team. Let's assume our COGS has been modified. You're going to see it's going to be reflected in every single period. Once you're at the point where, from your perspective, you're ready to push this budget back into Acumatica, all you do is click on Perform Write Back. And then just like that, your budget is going to be pushed back into Acumatica. And just to show you where this lives, you simply go into your universal search, type budget release. Let's do that again. Let's type budget release. And here is where you would release your budget. You have that flexibility to push your budgets back right away and release right away, but most folks prefer to use that as their second line of defense. So you'll see here that flexibility to push your budgets back right away. The last write back scenario that I do want to highlight right now is the generic write back functionality. And Andrew was mentioning this as well. And this, allows you to push back your budget to any single import scenario that has already been created within Acumatica. So you'll see in our instance here, the drop-down list of every single import scenario that's been created. So vendors, it can be non-stock items, anything that you think of that you want to be able to push back, you can do that. And it's very useful because a lot of the times you might have a bulk upload of data that you want to push back into Acumatica, maybe when you're first starting out or when you wanted to add a lot of data from, maybe another ERP that you're moving off of. So this really allows you that functionality to bulk send everything back into Acumatica. So let's take this example right here, and I'm going to click Create Generic Write Back Worksheet. Once I click that, you will see a template that will populate, and this is based on the columns that have already been defined within Acumatica. So all you'll have to do in this scenario here is fill these out one by one. And then once you're at the point where you're ready to distribute this back into Acumatica, in the same idea, you would just click on Perform Write Back. We do have another sample pack report I do want to mention. Just give me one moment. And this sample pack report is available to all of you. So you have access to this as well. It's a project-based or construction-based reporting sample pack. And, the model is the exact same as how I showed the financial side and the generic inquiries. So firstly, you'll see, this is a customer in the construction edition. We created this report about, I'd say, 2 years ago now. Where you'll see a dashboard on the left-hand side. This is just being extracted by the sheet that you see below here, where in our first example, you'll see this is a project portfolio report where we have a list of project managers, and you'll be able to see the drop down. And if you toggle between those given project managers, you'll be able to see their ongoing projects, their KPIs, their actuals versus budgets. But one item I do want to mention, we take a look up top, is where you see project ending amount. if you recall, when we're using the financial functionality, we would use account ending amount. So all we have done with Velixo is added functions for you to be able to retrieve those functionalities from Acumatica. We've created tasks, cost codes. So all of those items will be available for you within our help center. The next function I do, the next example I want to share, because this is a very common report that a lot of customers like to utilize, is being able to toggle between given projects and then, being able to report based on that given period for that project. So let's say we wanted to report as of a different financial period or a different reporting period. In this scenario here, you'll see the project update in real time. WIP reports are extremely important, and we value that. So we created a great example that a lot of customers can utilize as a framework. And the best part here is we have the account mappings available for all these reports, so you can utilize this as you're starting to build your projects out. The next example, project P&L, I'm sure you've all seen this before. And then lastly, and most importantly, being able to push back your project forecast into Acumatica directly. So you have that flexibility, you have that autonomy to be able to build this out on your own. Last item I do want to highlight today is the amount of support that you have available. So let's go to help.velixo.com. And from a support standpoint, I'm talking about the sample pack reports that I'm highlighting today. You'll be able to find all of these resources right here. So you'll see example reports and tutorials. We have getting started videos for Velixo. I know the team at Strategies Groups, they have a fair amount of certified individuals on their team, so they'll be able to assist. But one last item I do want to highlight are the functions that you have at your disposal. I mentioned that Velixo has 80 plus functions, and this is where all of our functions live. So you'll be able to see, by GL, let me just scroll down, list functions, and then the project module. So you'll be able to see examples for every single function we host. So let's say I just click, let's take an example, account, beginning function as an example. You'll see this description, the syntax, parameters, and then examples. So for every single function we host, we have that, you have that ability to utilize this, because we find that a lot of the customers we work with are really off and running with our product. Last but not least, I do want to highlight just a quick example right here. Within the report itself, within this dropdown, you'll see all the functionalities that you have access to. I spoke about all of these. One of the biggest ones you'll see on the top left is the ability to refresh your data at the click of a button. So if you take a look on the top left, you'll see Smart Refresh. And all this does is going to refresh anything that has been updated since the last time you have logged into your report itself, and you'll see it update in real time. So it's really at the click of a button. Account mapping, there's 3 different ways on how you can group your accounts together. So this can be related for projects, GIs, financial related, but you can do a range, you can do a specific set of accounts, and you can use wildcards. And you'll see the wildcard scenario here using question marks. So this is how you would group your accounts together, and then just showing you a few of the additional functionalities that you have access to. We also have a Velixo blog here. Highly suggest taking a look at that. We have a lot of content related to various facets that customers are looking at. So you'll see here, let me just scroll down. So I believe we have one specifically, but you'll see here some examples of some great content that you'll be able to utilize and repurpose for your own business needs. With that being said, happy to open up the floor to any questions there might be, and I'll leave that back to Selena.
Yeah, so we have a question that came in. It says, does Velixo come with canned reports, like pre-written reports, or do we have to build them all?
So Velixo does come with canned reports. So I showed 2 sample packs already. So there we have a construction-based sample pack, and we have P&L based sample pack as well. So those are on the website. It's on help.velixo.com. But if that individual would like us to send us the link to that, we can do that, or we can send it to your team and your team can forward it off to the customer.
Okay, yeah. There aren't any more questions in the Q&A box. I think we answered a lot. Actually, never mind. I just got one. It says, can the data push feature be used to update existing data as well?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Is this a monthly subscription, annual subscription, or one-time purchase?
Yeah, so this is an annual subscription, and we always suggest speak with the strategies group team because from that standpoint, we don't do anything direct with customers.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing I would throw out on the subscription, and you mentioned it, but for us, it was a really big deal that it was a single price for an unlimited amount of users. And part of that is like, you know, our project managers who are doing that estimating, that's a small fraction of their job, but it does make that fraction of their job dramatically more efficient. But you know, if it were maybe a more traditional software model where it's, I don't know, $50 a month a user, it's possible we would have not done it, because it's just nice to be able to use it every time it makes sense and not always have to say, oh, well, is it worth $600 a year? Or is it worth, you know, is it worth that amount of money? Because the answer, I think, most of the time is yes, but that doesn't mean that people are always going to want to spend, like, that your ownership group is always going to want to spend that money, because inevitably what will happen is, like, well, your software bill will grow to be something really, really high.
Yeah, for sure. So I have another question here. It says, will support come from strategies group or Velixo? It would be kind of a team effort. The strategies group team will field any questions, and if we have to escalate anything, we can escalate that to Velixo. But as Duffy said, we have a fair amount of people certified in Velixo, and we are Acumatica experts, so we can help support any questions that you might have, but there might come a time where we have to escalate it to the Velixo team.
I also just want to jump in and mention, for any of those times where escalations are necessary, we do have a full support team. We have a dedicated client success team. So there is always someone here to be responsive and to help out during that collaboration.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. When I was first on Acumatica, I think pre-strategies group, our previous group hadn't used Velixo all that much, and so there was multiple times where I literally ended up on Velixo's website, just chatted online on their website, and within, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, someone was on a screen share call with me, helping me walk through something I couldn't figure out. So I can attest to that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And we at Strategies Group have had questions ourselves because we use Velixo internally. And whenever we need to talk to the team for any support purposes, they're always super responsive. So support shouldn't be an issue. I do have a few more questions. So this individual is asking, does the Velixo live, or does the Velixo tool live in Excel act as an add-in? If we have 50 employees using it, do they all need to add it in their Excel?
Yeah.
How would it work if we had a shared template and I wanted multiple users to use it for budget uploads? Sorry.
Yeah, so no problem. So the easy answer is, yeah, you can download Velixo two ways. So you can go the route I already went, where we send you off a link, you download that to your device. It's a plugin, or you can even go to the Windows. You can go into Excel, click on go into the Windows add-on and add it. Funny enough, directly from there. It takes, you know, at the most 20 seconds or so. That would be the easiest way. But if you wanted, you can share your files with other individuals who have access through Microsoft, you know, 365 online. But they would have to connect to their environment, so they would have to have access. But it's seamless, as you saw when I went through it today. It took, you know, 30 seconds at the most to download.
Yeah, the other thing I'd throw out there is the generic write back feature. I think in order for it to work, you have to have two-factor authentication now, Duffy, isn't that right?
Yeah.
And so, it was once you get, all I know is we had to upgrade, I think, to 22R2 in order to get our generic write back feature to work with two-factor authentication. I think that was the issue. And for us, two-factor authentication is really important. So anyway, that was just a complexity that we ran into, I think, with, I don't know if it was a recent update of Velixo or if it was just the nature of the generic write back, but in order to do it, we had to be on 22R2 to have two-factor and generic write back.
Okay, yeah, so it seems like there aren't any more questions. With that, we can wrap up a little bit early here. Thank you both to Duffy and Andrew for your presentations. I know even I learned some things that I didn't know before, so I think that was awesome, and I hope everybody realizes the value of Velixo. As I said, we use it internally for reporting purposes and just to make the Acumatica experience easier for our users. So if anybody has any interest, feel free to reach out to anybody on the strategies group team, specifically your client success manager, Diana or Alyssa would be happy to help you out. Duffy is also available to answer any questions, and yeah, so if you have any questions for any of us or any of the presenters today, feel free to reach out. And I will be sharing a recording of this webinar probably sometimes tomorrow. So thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.